Hey everybody, I'm Lisa Zikoski and I'm joined with Ken Moench of Moench Method Bodywork, and we have Dom and Erika Morello here with us tonight and baby Enzo, and we're going to be talking about all the awesome things that Ken has done with Dom, and he met Ken as an athlete, and now baby Enzo is getting worked on as well and getting his body pain-free and happy mama, baby, and daddy after they get worked on. So,
Oh, yeah.
hey Dom, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Can you tell us a little bit, like, so how long ago was it that you met Ken and how did you get started with Mensch Method Bodywork?
Yeah, so I've known Ken probably shoot, over 15 years for sure. So first got introduced to Ken actually through my youngest brother. He had a football injury. I know one of his vertebrae kind of got knocked out of whack in Pop Warner. And then I think we heard about Ken from a family friend. And so I remember just going there with my parents, and I was, maybe a young man, 13. And he worked on my brother for, let's say, an hour, hour and a half, and loosened all those muscles up and shifted that vertebrae because it was literally kind of like his curvature was out, just that one from a weird hit,
Wow.
and moved it back into place. And I was like, man. And then for myself, I don't think I saw Ken until maybe around high school. So it would have been about 2009, 2010. I was going to see him initially for my shoulders. Had a more of a just tight rotator cuff. I grew up playing baseball and football. Separated my shoulder when I was in middle school, so just playing baseball, throwing, and then got pretty heavily into weightlifting with football once I got to high school. Just had super tight shoulders, so I went and saw Ken, and I know the first time going to see him, like I hadn't been worked on him yet. I just knew what to expect with my younger brother, but that was back in the Therapy Central days, and I know his little motto was, it hurts but it works. So I
That's
didn't know what
right.
to expect, but I just remember Ken went over everything thoroughly, even during the session thoroughly. Never caused any issues of pain or anything like that. Like anything he does, he explains it, and then you work through it and you feel so much better. So I just remember he started working on my left shoulder, my left side, and before he even touched my shoulder, he released some of my IT bands in my lower back, and I was like, man, my shoulder feels great, and you hadn't even touched it yet. And he worked on my, my scapula, all the small muscles around that area, and then the left shoulder, and he's like, you think that's your good one? Wait to see what we do on the other side. And so, I felt like $1,000,000 after that, and I was pretty, set and hooked on, hey, like, what he's doing is awesome. And I had done chiropractor or your typical quote unquote sports massage, but it was nothing even remotely close to what Ken was doing. And then I saw him throughout high school, and he worked on my hip flexors and anything like that. So I just know getting those muscles loosened up allowed me just to have. Sorry, my dog's barking.
All right.
You'll have to edit that out.
Nah.
Definitely keeping that.
Um,
She would.
but I'll wait till Milo's done.
Yeah, just
Milo.
Our guard
I'm
dog.
surprised your dog didn't come around when she.
Yeah, no kidding. They're in the other room, so
Yeah. Milo, go lay down.
Good lord.
She, did the dog hear other people's voices and get worried?
No, I think he either saw people outside or deer, and he got excited.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Our
Yeah,
neighbors
definitely.
like come and go a lot, so we don't need to see them.
What? Okay.
Um,
Okay. So I think you end with like he loosened up those muscles and.
Yeah, so just when he would, after I get worked on, just having that extra range of motion and fluidity and, actually feeling, hey, this is how, much room I have for extra strength and mobility that I didn't even know I was able to have. I
Yeah.
just remember even he would work on my hip flexors and my glutes and adductors and my legs, and I never had a specific pain or injury there at those times. But I was like, man, like I feel great even into my psoas, which just allowed me to train even further and allow my form for whether playing football or even I did track too in high school, just like running, sprinting, movement a lot better. And you just when you feel better, you can play so much better and you're not in pain. And there was times where I did have significant pain in my shoulders and injuries, and he worked on them a lot, and that helped me reduce that. And then unfortunately I did play through some pain even after when I shouldn't have paused, and I did have some some surgeries on my shoulders. But I even saw Ken after that, like around either in college or after college, and he was even able to work on some of that scar tissue and break some of that up. And he's also given me good exercises to do outside of what he's done there in the office. He's always talked a lot about the nutrition side of things. He's one of the first people I remember, even back in the 2010s, talking about the amounts of water and minerals you should drink when no one even talked about that. Now that's a huge phenomenon everyone talks about. But
before salt water was a thing.
15 years ago, of like, hey, you need to get good quality minerals and waters and all that kind of stuff. You're talking about the food you should intake for your blood type and all that. So I just feel like Ken's always been kind of a decade ahead of everybody, which just now leads to recently, before we started bringing Enzo, I was seeing probably some of his videos on Instagram or something like that, because I've been following his page for a long time. Once he got that social media stuff up and going, and moved over the brand, the Moench Method Bodywork. And I saw he was working on some other folks as kids, and I said, man, if I've experienced awesome results in my brother and a lot of athletes, I'm really curious to see how the baby work would help out our child. So I reached out to him. I think I can't remember, it was either right before Enzo was born or right after he was born.
Right.
I was just like, hey man, really interested on it. Don't know too much about it, just kind of seen the glimpses of videos. How soon? And this was, of course, before the book was released. And he was like, hey, like I saw my grandbaby 36 hours after they were born, and then the other one a couple days after. So I think after that I was like, okay, awesome. So once Enzo was, we kind of were getting situated, Erika and I, just being parents, I think it was within the first month we came and brought Enzo in for his first treatment, and the results were astounding. It was just pretty eye-opening to see how relaxed you could get from the beginning to the end. And Ken, you can, I guess, talk a little bit on that. I'll keep going.
So, Dom, let us know like the issues that you guys were having as parents, like just because the doctors give you this, feed them, burp them, change their diaper.
Yeah.
And that type of thing. And I know you guys are trying all of that stuff. How well was that working? And what specific issues was he having?
So yeah, the things that I noticed, and then I'll let Erika speak on from her point of view. He was pretty good baby out the gate. Feeding was fine. Like his overall mood was fine, but we did notice, definitely within that first month, that we would try to hold him what you would appear to be, hey, this is a good position for the baby, but he would try to kind of squish back up or tilt his back funny, like he was still in the womb, and I could tell that that was going to be causing him issues. And then I know, probably from week 2 to 4, he definitely started to get a lot of gas issues, and that was affecting his sleep for sure. And we were having a lot of trouble with the colic, right? And I'll let kind of Erika talk on her point of view from that.
Yeah, I think it was the typical early stage of fussiness at night. I guess they call it witching hour. And it's so funny, like when you look stuff up, it's always like, well, sometimes we don't know why. And I'm like, well, that seems crazy that there's no answers to things.
Right.
But that was like a big part. Like he was super gassy and really struggling with just in general, like at the end of the day and into the night, it was getting the gas out and actually like using the bathroom and settling down and then sleep. And so we were up quite often, which obviously takes a good toll. And at first, honestly, I didn't think much about it because I'm like, oh, this is newborn life, like I understand. But after we saw Ken, like we had a noticeable difference. And so I was like, maybe it's not normal. So I think it's like you don't know until you see a difference. But and like Dom said, I carried really, really small. So he was really cramped up in there. And he was 8 pounds, 3 ounces, and 22 inches coming out at 39 weeks. And
Wow.
how did you even fit? But it like he was always basically just like pushing against everything and trying to make room, and so that's I'm not at all surprised honestly that he was pretty tight. Like at the end of the day, like he kept going back into that scrunch position probably for I don't know 6-8 weeks. He was still very like scrunchy, and so that was really nice for him to start like lengthening. Sorry, give me a second.
It's okay. Take your time.
Rearrange him. And a little smacky down there.
Baby.
We're trying to get him a little earlier, and it's a battle. We've succeeded to get him to 9 o'clock, but we're trying to inch it back.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that this timing, when I scheduled, I was like, gosh, they're probably that's the time when they're trying to put the baby to bed. So.
And we were like, I don't know what's worse, like which one would be better. It just seemed like 7 o'clock he's wide awake, there's no way. But,
Yeah.
Well, just Erika, just to for you and for everybody else watching, what you experience is normal. It is normal. But, my question for people is, do you want normal for your baby or do you want optimal? And the normal is babies are always experiencing all of these issues because their body was so cramped up. And they were the pre-birth postural deficits that we address once we start working with them. And the biggest issue that a lot of babies have, whether they're human babies or puppies or anything, it doesn't matter. Their hip flexors that attach to their hips are pulled up high, and that when you try to straighten them out, it actually pulls their spine and their hips forward, and that can actually pinch the nerves that are feeding their intestines, their urinary tract, their bowels and bladder, all of those things. And so once you release those, it takes all the stress off of them and allows those things to start functioning properly, which is why the colic and the gas and all of those things can resolve themselves once the digestive tract actually starts working properly, once you open up all that tissue up. And it makes it more comfortable for you to hold them. You felt that he was much longer after we released him. And then from what Dom was telling me after the last session was that he said, I think it was like 5 out of the next 6 days he was sleeping through the night. And then the one night that was the off night, he woke up around 2 o'clock and got fed and then went right back to sleep. So that's a dramatic difference from, I mean, gosh, if you can get a kid sleeping through the night that young, that's a win for everybody. Not only you guys, but also for him.
Yeah. No, he definitely, it was literally the second session with you, and now he's consistently through the night. And I think the one night that he really didn't, he was very, very gassy. Like it was just kind of a losing battle on that one. So that was probably my fault because I'm sure I ate something that didn't agree with him. But yeah, I mean, he's been, 2 months I was a little shocked. Dom and I were laughing because we both woke up at one point and like jumped up, freaking out. We're like, why isn't he woken up? And so we like both went over there and we're like, and when he did it, I was like, Dom, I just did that. You're going to wake him up. And so, we were not expecting that at 2 months. And so it's been really nice. And my pediatrician told me at our 2-month checkup, she goes, please don't tell your new mommy friends that your baby's sleeping through the night because they might smack you. So I was like,
well, here's a better approach. Tell them that he is, and send them the book or the link to it and say, this is how this happened, because you'll be saving, you'll get them a lot more sleep over the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, and I think just to go back to what you were saying, Erika, about the normal and not, being a mom and, you have this new life and you're going through this own transition yourself as going from, baby in the womb to now this is a whole change in kind of just like life experience. To be told something that is clearly wrong is normal and not have any answers is just the most frustrating part about it, because I think if we can understand what's going on as moms, then we can have more patience and have a different approach, and then there's something that we can do about it. I think it's the worst to just be told like this is just how it is and there's nothing you can do about it. I think that's the most powerless feeling. And even just to get some understanding of, Ken and I talked about this last week, that to understand that babies can be in pain, and they probably are, or at least they're tight, like it brings a different level of, peace, I think, just knowing like, hey, this is what's going on. There's something we can do about it. And even if you can't get to, Austin, Texas, if you're in a different place in the country, at least if you know what's going on with your baby, that's the first step in trying to help them and at least caring for them through the crying, and rather than, raging or just falling apart altogether, right?
Somebody asked me recently, they said, I sent them a copy of the book to read in a PDF form, and they read through it, and they said, okay, they said, what is the goal of the book? Because we don't go into very deep specifics about how to treat the baby or anything else, because that's a whole other training protocol, and we don't want people just willy-nilly just trying stuff on babies without really knowing the pressure and all that type of stuff to use.
Right.
And so it's more to bring awareness that your baby is not broken. They're simply uncomfortable. They're in pain, and to be able to get parents to look at their child that's crying and keeping them up with more empathy rather than anger or frustration. And really, even having anger and frustration with the medical community is probably misplaced, because they're just repeating what they learned in school, and they were taught by their professors and people that knew and all that type of thing, and so they're basically just going by their own experience. But the difference is, like Lauren's kids, her first one was that's my daughter. She was my grandson was crying from the moment he left the womb, and just all the time, and especially when they tried to change his diaper, they're just screaming like his face is getting ripped off. And she's like, is he okay? And they say, well, that's normal. And then her second baby wasn't crying at all, and she said, is she okay? She's not crying. And they said, no, that's normal. So it's like everything's normal, because all of these conditions are apparent with most babies, but nobody has ever dug into why they act this way. and to say it's normal is a little bit lazy. If an adult is crying and people say, well, that's normal. Well, it's not normal. It's not normal for any mammal to cry unless they're in pain, whether it's emotional or physical. And with the baby, it's they're either being ignored, which would be something that they'd be fussy about, but also just the fact that they're in physical pain. And we've been taught for decades that babies are not in pain. In fact, as a matter of fact, the Shaken Baby Foundation has come out and said, no, they're not in pain. I had an argument with a doctor in Australia through a post that I put up, and he says, we have all this funding, and and I asked, he said, babies aren't in pain. It's provable. And I said, well, who funded the studies? And tell me, without saying so, that you don't know how to make a baby stop crying, without saying, I don't know how to make a baby stop crying. And that was the end of the conversation, because he basically told us that he couldn't, he didn't know what to do. And so it's not their fault. They've been taught these things, and it's a goal. I don't know if it's a goal, if that's the right word, but the pharmaceutical industry and all of the treatments that are out there aren't really looking for solutions to this, because there's whole industries built up about how to pacify a baby. And those are all treating symptoms of a problem. And the real problem is that they have been uncomfortable since they left the womb, and especially once their tendons and ligaments firmed up in all of their joints, when their muscles were that tight and contracted since they've been in the womb. And so if they have tight contracted ligaments and tendons and their joints and the muscles are tight, now almost every movement they make is really uncomfortable. And that's the part that we're trying to get across to people, so that they understand that this is the issue. And if we can open those areas up and allow that baby to not have any pain from the first days or weeks of life or months, their brain develops completely differently, the correct way. Their musculature is not restricting them, so they start using their body as it's intended to be used. And that baby will be the favorite baby no matter what crowd they're in, because they're making eye contact, they're tracking people all over the room, they're engaging, they're pleasant, they're going to be held more and say, you're such a good boy, and you're so good, and we love you. And those types of things develop their social growth in a way that a lot of babies just aren't. I mean, when they say to sleep train a baby, it's to put them in a crib, turn the light off, let them scream their head off while they're away from their parents, and while they're in pain and they're in the dark, they're separated, and they develop anxiety. They develop they're disconnected from their primary caregivers. They feel insecure, and those things can stick with them their entire life. So the intellectual, physical, and emotional growth of a child changes dramatically once you get the pain out of their body, so that they can develop like they're supposed to.
Yeah, and Ken, I think having heard a lot of your stories of people, when you originally, before you started seeing babies and kind of had this revelation about where and when pain is starting, you had the opportunity to hear stories from people who come in, they're 50, 60, 70 years old, and saying, yeah, I've really had this pain my entire life, or had a posture, the gentleman that you shared that had been hunched over, and kind of the trauma both in his body and just kind of as identity issues. So it's really kind of like a whole person, change and possibly prevention. And I think it's pretty cool for Dom to have experienced having kind of felt the relief. And even when he said, like, hey, Ken even worked on places in my body that weren't necessarily in pain, but you could feel the freedom in your body, So what was that like for you, knowing when Enzo was getting work done, like, hey buddy, you're gonna feel so
Yeah,
much better.
I mean, so definitely it's definitely different seeing your child, and of course, he's gonna cry, and I told Erika because Erika hasn't had opportunity yet to get worked on by Ken. Hopefully, we'll change that in the future. But I was like, a lot of adults want to cry and they just don't. So
Yeah.
having a baby
I'm
cry is
not here.
but watching him go through it, I'm like knowing that I've done that process is like, hey, he's gonna get relief, and by the time I mean, I would say halfway to three quarters through, Enzo's starting to just get relaxed, and definitely on the second time. Of course, he was 2 months old at the time. He already experienced it the first time and already had some relief that instantly. I think by the time Ken was done working on his hips, which has been his more challenging body part area, when he was doing his arms and his neck, he was already like falling asleep. In Ken's hands, and just when he was done, he's just sprawled out like a relaxed, I guess starfish is a good way to put it, and it's just super peaceful. And there's many other babies I've seen that Ken has worked on the same thing, that they're just super relaxed. And then after that last session, like Eric, like my wife was saying, I mean, he just sleeps through the whole night, 8 or 9 hours, which is what we're used to talking to our other friends that have kids that are Enzo's age or up to a year. It's just unheard of, and so
Right.
people are like, how's that possible? And we're like, we tell them all the time, hey, we go see Ken at Moench Method Bodywork, and the results have been amazing. And to Ken's point earlier that I wanted to touch base on too is, we do take him out in the public a lot and try to get him socialized and everything, and people all the time, notice that he's really relaxed, and they go, man, how old is he? He looks like he could be 5 or 6 months. Or like, oh, he just now is turning 3 months old this coming up week. He's not even 3 months old yet. They're like, wow, he's just relaxed. And we take him outside to like an outdoor patio. He's just taking in the trees, the lights, picking up conversations, noticing the dogs and stuff like that. And he's just so much more developed, I feel like, than your typical baby at that age. And then also, I mean, his size, he's grown a lot. I mean, he's been breastfeeding a lot too, so the nutrition plays a big part. But I noticed compared to some of our friends' kiddos, they're 6 months old. He's almost the same. He's only a couple of pounds off, and he's a solid kid, but he's lean, he's elongated, he's not squished up. So, talking with Ken before our treatments and then now, it's like, how much has that really helped him develop even greater and allow his nutrition and his rest to play a part in his body developing more rapidly than a typical baby that is crunched up and in pain, or their brain's not sending the right synapses on that. I mean, there's a whole nother area that I feel like Ken's touched on that no one else has, and we're just scratching the surface. Probably there's probably even more so as time goes on. So it's just super amazing. It's definitely opened my eyes up, and my wife. So it's just been pretty awesome. And Ken was telling us about one of his other clients. He saw another young little boy from when he was probably Enzo's age to, I think you said, 2 years old, Ken. He's so much better, and his athleticism already. And same kind of thing. People are like, wow, your child's so much more advanced, and my kid's almost, in grade school and can't even be that athletic, and he's only 2.5 kind of thing. Which I feel like, God willing, that Enzo's on that same kind of track, but it's just kind of remarkable to see how much I feel like these treatments have helped him for sure in all aspects.
Well, just the aspect of sleep. Look, as an athlete, Dom, that rest and being able to rest your body is one of the most important aspects of recovery. And if a baby is up every hour and a half, every hour, every 2 hours, all night long, every day, every night, and then also fussing throughout the day and only resting periodically, their body can't reset, and they're not going to grow like they should, and they're going to be uncomfortable. And the pain, actually, there are studies, and these are in the book, that show that chronic, constant pain as an infant and as a growing toddler, it rewires their brain not the way it's supposed to be. And it's disallows the proper development of the brain and the foundation for their intellect. And so I've asked people, what do you think it looks like when a baby is taking all of the information that they're taking in, and then instead of their foundation being this big, it's way out here, and their intellect grows up from that instead of from here out. I said, what do you think that looks like long term? And they shrugged their shoulders and said, nobody knows, because nobody's ever seen this before. And doctors are always questioning the parent. Wait a minute, how old is this baby? Because they're always so far above the mark in all of the metrics that they're supposed to be hitting that the doctors are even shocked. They can't believe this baby is this young and doing all of these things already. And so there's a line in the book. It says that the child development field is in its infancy because they've never taken into consideration pre-birth postural deficits. And until they start taking that seriously and understanding that that is delaying and interrupting the proper growth of an infant into an adult in so many ways that nobody can even fathom the lost potential over the past thousands of years that humans would have had available to them had they just had the filter of pain clouding everything around them. And when that's lifted, they actually start developing as they were supposed to.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, just the shadow of the impact is just it really is mind-blowing to think about. And Dom, I know that you have probably hoped for your son to be an athlete like every probably athlete. And so it's really exciting to think about like what his experience will be for him, developing. And I mean, he already has a cool athlete name,
Right.
Enzo Morello.
That's what I said. I said he's got to be an athlete or something, or we're doing something wrong.
That right there is an immediate sign up. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty exciting just to see what that looks like for him and in his body and moving freely and, not having to deal with injury and limitation and, cognitive development and all of that. And I have to point out what a great job Ken does. And I notice is every time Ken he's worked on my husband, or I've just listened to him work on so many people. But you, Dom, I don't know what kind of formal education you have, but you sound educated already on your entire body. You sound really familiar with the muscles and the joints and how this thing all works. And I think that's another differentiator when people get worked on by Ken is that you leave going, oh my gosh, welcome to my body. I had no idea all of the things that were happening in my body until today. And to be able to leave and have, practical tools and understand, well, when this hurts, well, this is actually why, and I can do something about it until I can go and see Ken.
Right.
Or Lisa, all the rest of my staff. We have 4 locations, and all of our therapists are amazing. And they're getting the thing that one of the things I'm most grateful for is the fact that when I see the reviews, and anybody that questions any of this stuff, what I want you to do, seriously, go to Moench Method Bodywork and go to reviews. Go to Google reviews or Amazon reviews or Yelp reviews or Massage Book reviews. Read through them. And ours are sitting at 5.0 for clinics that deal with people in acute and chronic pain. And for a clinic to have 5-star reviews across the board from multiple therapists across different locations is a testament not just to me but to the technique that I was blessed to learn, and that was only through prayer. That I early on prayed for wisdom, knowledge, and discernment about a better, faster way to help people get out of pain. And God has been extremely gracious and giving in allowing me to learn what he wanted to do with my practice and with the all of the therapists that work with us, because they're getting the same results that I've always gotten. And if they have a problem, they haven't quite figured something out, there's a weird case, they'll call me in to supervise or assist with those clients, or one of the clinic leads or whatever. But we are, one of the differences in our practice is we're looking for the root cause, and we're trying to get at the base of it so that we can eliminate it. And I know we've said this before, but over the past 3 years, our average number of client visits per client per year is somewhere between 2.3 and 2.5 visits. And most corporations would be screaming to get those numbers up. And as hours go down, we celebrate that, because then we know we're doing a better job. And the goal isn't to see people forever. Now I've been seeing Dom for years and years and years, and if he comes in sometimes, he'll see another therapist and get the same results. But the life happens, and we all get injuries, and we have stress. This life is full of stress, and just stress will cause muscles to tighten and contract. So it's not treating the same injury over and over and over and over again, especially if people take to heart the hydration and nutrition and posture and proper stretching and warm up and cool down and all of those things that we tell them, because we're literally trying. And I'll ask clients, I just told you all of these things about what to do to take care of your body. Now, if you do all of them, am I going to make more money or less money from you? And the answer is less. And it's like, but that's the point. People shouldn't have to rely on doctors or therapists to get them well over and over and over again, and especially for the same injury. And the problem is nobody's looking at root causes, and that's precisely what we do. And then we educate our clients so that they can feel comfortable in this machine and understand how to take care of it. And that gives you freedom. It gives you a confidence as you get older that some little thing isn't going to take you down like grandma and like mom and great grandpa and all those people, because you see these people. And trust me, we have people that come in that are 50 years old, 60 years old, and they're starting to panic because they're having the same issues that their mom or dad or the grandparents had. And they think, oh my God, here it goes. And it's like, no, it's not. We have a client that came in recently who's 80 years old, and she thought the same thing. And guess what? She's out chopping wood and carrying heavy boxes and moving stuff and doing all the stuff that she's done for years at 80 years old, when she was sidelined for a bit because she had pain in her knees and her back and all that type of thing. And we educated her and told her what was going on. We talked to her about her diet. She's cleaned that up. She's gotten rid of all the inflammatory foods that were doing it, and got her hydrating in a way that would allow her body to flush toxins and get all of that crap out of her body so that she could function like she's supposed to without pain. And what that's given her is peace and confidence that she doesn't have to just go down the slow path to a nursing home someplace, when it's just almost always a combination of all of those things and tight contracted muscles. And so that's to see people come in almost hopeless and panicky and see them leave with confidence, especially once they've incorporated some of these other aspects into their lifestyle, and their whole demeanor changes because now they're not afraid anymore, and now they're doing the things that they've loved to do before. And that's probably the most rewarding thing about the work that we do, because it really does change people's lives.
Yeah, for sure. I forgot what I was going to say. I had something good.
It's okay. We can edit this part out. We could just go ahead. Dom, do you have anything else?
Yeah. You know, some of the stuff that I've seen, you or your other leads has been like you were saying, Ken. Weren't even sports injuries now. It's just, I guess, more modern day life problems we face. Whether it's, for me, I remember I think I saw you once and probably Jordan and probably a couple times after college, and it was just because I had a desk job. I got a
Yeah.
job, and everyone works at a desk, and
Yeah.
everyone's on the computer. And I guess around that time, the stand-up desk thing, like you said, didn't get real popular yet. But I just remember going to you. I think I went to you, and it was for stuff I never really had. Like lower back was tight, probably my hip flexors were tight, which weren't sports induced. And you're like, hey, what have you changed from 5 years ago when you're an athlete? I'm like, well, I sit a lot more. I don't stretch as much. And you're like, well, are you sleeping right, sleeping correctly? Yes, you taught me right, I do that right, but I'm sitting, not stretching a lot during the day and sitting a lot. So stuff like that. And Ken was probably one of the first people I remember at that time too. Like, hey, you need to stand up, move, make sure you're hydrating still, even while you're working and you're not exercising, and getting if you can get a stand-up desk and doing stuff like that. And then of course, like years later, probably within the next 5 years, everyone's like, oh, we need to stand up. The walking treadmills came about, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there's your everyday stress, like Ken was saying. But the one thing I did want to definitely touch on, going back to like Enzo, is I just was thinking through since we brought him to Ken, and I had a conversation with Ken. I was like, hey, like I wonder for myself or any other athletes, what injuries that we have that we were kind of predisposed to and happened because we were tight and restricted as a child. And I was telling Ken, I go, you saw, my generation, a couple other generations, we, saw you throughout our sports, whether it's, youth, college, there's some folks that he's seen in the pro level, and, get more years out of, whatever sport we want to do, and excel. But I'm like, now you get to do the next generation for our children, and getting to start young and teach them all those things young and prevent even possible having any of those issues. I just think back ago, of course, Ken wasn't in Round Rock and I wasn't in Round Rock yet when I was born at the time. Getting to see him young as a young boy, like, would that prevented me fully from ever having, my predisposed, shoulder stuff that I had, or prevented it from ever getting bad in the first place, So which I'm hoping, if Enzo's anatomy is the way, mine were set, and my acromion bones, if that's not going to be an issue for him because he's going to see Ken, or, a hip flexor thing or anything like that, or, so many young athletes, boys and girls get, ACL tears and stuff like that because they just don't take care of their ligaments and tendons. I don't know how many kids is he going to prevent at a young age. So it's just pretty awesome to see, and to see how long Ken has been doing it, and to see the several locations grow. And I know that was always kind of his plan, and it's pretty awesome to see that to fruition. And they're supporting the local Austin FC now. I think Chris had a super park, see some of the Texas Star guys, the minor league hockey teams. That's just pretty awesome to see how much it's expanded, and even out other pro athletes that Ken's been able to get from way across the U.S. to come, or have Ken come out, and go see the college. Ken goes sees in some of the colleges and stuff, and talks to their programs and helps them prevent injuries just by telling stuff that he sees as everyday clients. So it's pretty remarkable. Anytime anyone has any kind of injury, always say, hey, if you want to feel better, go see Ken and his folks. They'll take care of you. And like he says, if on a typical year, I maybe would go see him 2, maybe 3 at the most times, and I'd be fine. But it's just the level of care you get when you go see any of him, Ken or his other therapists, is always remarkable. And he doesn't need to see a single patient 10 times because he's going to have other patients that are recommended by those folks because their level of care is accurate. So it's just pretty remarkable, what they do at Moench Method Bodywork.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. All the therapists are totally just educated and caring, and that was one of the things, even working on Ken's new website, you know, going through all the Google reviews, I was like, Ken, I'm going to cry because I can't find one bad thing. You know, nobody was even like, oh, I don't like, you know, there's usually like one person that has to ruin the 5.0 review and say like, they smelled bad or something. But, you know, everybody, and like, it is kind of funny to think everybody comes there in pain, and to end up with a 5-star review is really wild. Like, there's really not that many places that you can say that about, regardless of, you know, what kind of service it is that you offer. So, I mean, a life out of pain, I just think of so many things that we can't even focus on, even if you're not an athlete. You know, if you're just like your wife, Erika. I mean, I remember when I first had Christopher, and I had a massage therapist who wasn't trained in the Moench method, but she had to come to my house because I nursed my son, fell asleep, and I was probably dehydrated because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't drinking enough water, and I fell asleep nursing, and I could not move out of this position. And I was just like, it was the worst ever. And I thought, gosh, I'm not even an athlete, I'm not working out, like, what, why am I stuck in this position, you know? And I always think about how that moment, if I just could have had Ken to help me out. I mean, I really struggled popping Motrin and trying to, you know, massage my way out of it. But I mean, if you have flesh, Moench method will help you.
Well, and I told him, you know, when we were there with Enzo, I actually had a really bad pain in my abdomen for the, second half of my pregnancy. And as we were going through it, we were like, it's not a round ligament. It feels very like abdominis. And I told his cousin is a physical therapist. I was like, dude, it's my psoas. I was like, I know it's my psoas. And they were like, we can't do anything about it. And so it's been it was like a really tough, like, I wouldn't say tough pregnancy, but it was uncomfortable there at the end. And that is like one thing I'm going to do right next time is like go work on that grouping of muscles. Because like all the therapy in the world, you know, it still didn't relieve my psoas. You can't do anything about that. So
one of the things, those are such great points, and it brought this up. One of the things that we have found is that, and we're able to work on pregnant women from conception to delivery. And even if the baby just, you know, you're at 40 weeks, 41 weeks, and the baby's still not coming, there are things that we can do to speed that along that will actually help the baby come. And if you do those things during labor, it actually makes the contractions stronger and more effective. And so it shortens the time that the mom is actually in active labor because everything's working better. The contractions are harder, helping push the baby out quicker. So it's much less stressful on the mom and the baby during the labor process. But even before that, if you get worked on from conception through the delivery, we're actually opening up the abdominal cavity, the low back, and all that kind of stuff. And what it's doing is making more room for the baby to be able to move more and not be jammed into a tight, restricted place because the quadratus lumborum, all the muscles in your back, the psoas iliacus, the abdominal muscles, all of those things, if they're contracted and tight, the labor one is going to hurt way more because the muscles are already contracted. And when all of those things are going on, the chemicals that are released to allow the uterus to contract, and this extends to menstrual cycles as well. If you lengthen all of those things, the chemicals that cause the uterus to contract are not specific to the uterus. They'll cause every muscle in the woman's body to contract more, which is why women have back labor. That's just because their back is tightening up because those muscles were already tight. So if you make more room for the baby and for mama to hold that baby, the pregnancy is way less uncomfortable. the babies typically do not come out of the womb as tight because they've had more room to move when they're in the uterus. So it's a win-win for mom. It's a win-win for the doctors because the moms have much quicker and easier deliveries. There's way less need for cesarean sections, that type of thing. And so it just simplifies and makes the whole process way better and faster. One of my therapists that we had in Westlake and in New Braunfels, Grace, was working on her sister throughout her pregnancy, and that baby was not nearly as tight as most of the babies that we end up seeing.
Wow.
And so so even the first session for the baby is way less uncomfortable because the muscles aren't as tight and contracted as they would have been had the mom not been worked on throughout the pregnancy. So this isn't just a baby issue, it's a mom issue as well. In the United States, you're lucky if you get a brochure from the doctor. In Europe, you get a year's worth of physical therapy minimally after the baby's born, and you get all this time off because they realize how important it is for the baby to bond with mom and dad. And so it's a different system for sure, but we can do what we can until we get to the point where we have more comprehensive health care for moms and babies. And I think getting the book out, the book is, I don't think we mentioned the name of it, it's Every Baby Hurts. And the first part of the subtitle is a new look at the restrictions and pain that begin before birth. And so that'll be out on the 21st. And anybody watching this can go to our website, moenchmethodbodywork.com, and you can download the full introduction to the book for free. You just put in your email, we'll send it to you, and now you've got the introduction, which is way more than the title or the subtitle, and it explains the book in such a way that I think anybody that reads that will want to get the book. Look, I just was talking to a young athlete in Westlake today who Des was working on, and he was asking how this work would impact his grandpa, who's had knee surgeries and back surgeries and stuff. And so I explained where all of this discomfort and pain comes from, and he was like mind blown. And I said, listen, would you like a copy of the book so that you can read? He says, dude, I want to read that. That sounds freaking amazing. And I said, okay. So I sent him a copy in the PDF form, and I said, listen, share that with your grandpa so that he understands where this pain is coming from. It's muscular. What he has is, my muscles are too tightinitis. It's not arthritis. It's not tendonitis. It's really his muscles are too tight. And if he understands that, he's probably my age, his grandfather is, and then he'll start to understand why his body is feeling the way it is. He's not breaking. It's just that his joints have not had proper blood supply and circulation throughout his life, and they're pulling at the attachments now more than they were before. And then it gets to the point where the doctor says, oh, your knee's worn out, or your hip's worn out, or your back's worn out, and we've just got to do these surgeries. And I can tell you from 35 plus years of doing this kind of work that most every surgery that people have for joint replacement or back surgeries or anything else, nearly every single one of them is completely unnecessary. If you start young enough and children and their parents know that these are tight, restricted muscles that are causing the joint pain, and those can be easily rectified in 1 or 2 sessions. And once they understand how to take care of their bodies, then their joints continue to get proper blood supply and circulation and lymphatic drainage, and they're not being pulled out of their normal track, so their cartilage doesn't wear out, and their body can repair itself. Our bodies have nearly an infinite capacity to heal themselves, and it's just by getting proper blood supply and opening the body up so that it can do its job. Now, I realized years ago, and we've touched on this a little bit, that if they have proper blood supply, but the blood that's getting to those areas is toxic to them because of the food that they're eating, then we're not fixing the problem. And I've been studying diet for a very long time. I've been practicing these things on myself and doing the very best that I can to make sure I've got actual food that is matching my blood chemistry. And that all depends on your blood type. And I encourage everybody to download an app to their phone. It costs $3.99. It's a one-time charge, not a subscription. And it's called Eat Right for Your Type. If you look in the App Store, it's the blood type diet. And it tells you all the foods, depending on what your blood type is, that was based on what your ancestors ate. If you eat the foods that your body likes and recognizes, it repairs your body correctly and gives you energy. That's what food is supposed to do. All right. If you eat foods that your ancestors never ate, that your body doesn't like or recognize, it views those things as foreign invaders. Those things become a part of your body, and then your body starts attacking those things. It causes systemic inflammation, autoimmune diseases, weight gain, and loss of energy. Now, how many people do you know personally that have all of those things? And all you have to do is go to the airport. It's a great place to people watch, and you can see how many people are struggling with all of those things. And it doesn't matter their age. And like Desmond at our Westlake location was talking about the fact that his buddies, and Des is 25 years old. His buddies were saying, no, I can't play this weekend. My back's killing me, my leg, my hip, my this, my that, and all these things. And they're 25 years old. And they're literally not able to even play a game of touch football or basketball or something because their bodies are just resisting with everything because they have so much pain. And all of it is absolutely unnecessary. So the food component is absolutely essential. And I tell people, listen, if you really want to start feeling better today, stop poisoning yourself every day, because that's what people are literally doing. Even though it's organic and it's grass-fed, if it's the wrong kind of food, your body will build itself with those things, and then your body attacks those areas. So if that food becomes a part of your skin, you'll have eczema or psoriasis. If it goes to your stomach lining, you might have Crohn's or some other gastrointestinal issue, leaky gut syndrome. If it goes to your brain, you might have Parkinson's. You might get Parkinson's. All of these things are because of the food that we put in our mouths. And if you can't control what you put in your mouth because of your taste buds, you should burn those things off. Not literally. Please don't do that. But understand, and now I look at food, is this poison for me or is it food and nutrition for me? And so my diet has gotten very strict. I'm now of full retirement age. I checked with the Social Security Administration, and I'm actually going to start collecting Social Security checks probably in the next month or two. Depending on, like, this weekend, I'll probably sign up and start receiving that. But I'll be 67 in June. And so it's you do not have to be, look, I can sprint right now with no pain in my body at 67 years old. Do you realize what percentage of Americans can sprint?
Yeah.
It's like 5%.
Yeah.
And
Why?
those are usually a lot younger than I am. And it really depends on how you take care of this machine. And it is a machine, and you have to treat it like one that you actually care about, and you only get one of these. So it's really incumbent upon every person to start making decisions, not based upon how things taste, because let me tell you something, the food industry hires chemists to make food taste really good and make it addictive. And that's what people don't understand. The CEOs of every one of the companies that make your food don't eat the food that they're manufacturing because they know it's poison. And so really, are you going to continue to support these industries that are making us sick and fat and grow old way faster than we should? And it's really, if people really understood the nefarious nature of most corporations and the way that they produce these foods, it should make you angry enough to say, I'm not supporting that anymore. And I'm going to start taking care of this machine because God gave it to us, and it's the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we cannot do what we're supposed to do in this life if we're always in pain and we're always restricted. And that's what food and improper diet and sleep and all these things do to our bodies. And look, life is it's short, dude. We don't get a lot of decades.
Yeah.
And I want to be as active as I can to do the things that I'm supposed to do in this life, in this body, for as long as I can, so that I can help as many people as I can. And
I feel like you're not even close to retirement. I feel like, Ken, you've only just begun.
Look, everybody asked me. I had somebody ask me today if I'm still working. I said, dude, what else would I be doing?
What else?
And
Absolutely.
I have too many things to do. And look, no matter where you travel, you see people in terrible pain. We were in France a few years ago, and there was a guy that could not make it up the stairs at the train station. He took one step at a time, and every step was pain. And I'm looking at him. I was like, I whispered to Olivia, I said, do you think I should stop and tell him that I can fix that right now? And it's like, we had to get someplace. And it's like, nobody's going to listen to you because they didn't know who I was. I was just some stranger. And there are just too many people that are in pain around the world, and for no real good reason except they don't have the information that they need to get out of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about the new book, Every Baby Hurts, coming out April 21st. And I think this is a great turn for a lot of people who have lived in pain, or even just like have experienced kind of the shadow of that pain is cast from birth. And to actually have answers now, and to have a better choice. There's a lot of choices that we can make. But I think a lot of people feel stuck in pain management type of systems because they don't know that there is another choice. And I think that's what's so exciting about what you do, both with adults and now with babies, is that there's another choice besides just managing pain and managing the symptoms, but actually getting our bodies to a place where we can live free of that and live free from limitations. So thank you guys so much, Dom and Erika and Enzo. I'm sorry, Ken, I love every time you talk, but my eyes were just so fixed on him. He's so precious and he is just so peaceful. So he is your little baby testimony there, and you guys are doing such a great job with him. Look at how happy he is.
A little on the tired side, so.
As soon as you tell a kid to do something, they do it opposite. But thank you guys so much for your time and for hopping on. And we'll let you know when the episode is live, and you guys can check it out and share it. And yeah, I think that's all.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Dom and Erika. Thank you so much. Thank you, Enzo, for staying up later than your bedtime.
Yeah, good, buddy. And I'm going to need his autograph once he's in the MLB, and it's sponsored by Moench Method.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right, guys, take care. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.